Welcome everyone to the Spiel Sports Talk Show. It's your boy Sal coming from 412 Pittsburgh, PA. It's the best sports talk show on Twitch. I hope everyone's had a great week. We're super excited to talk NFL, give that week 6 recap, and talk about week 7. We're going to talk about that Thursday night football game in the AFC North tomorrow. We'll give a little WNBA Finals recap too. Black Belly's waiver wonders as always. The Spiel, it's here. Season 6, Episode 6. It is October 16, 2025. We're doing a late night show. If you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on Spotify and on YouTube. And let me go ahead and introduce my guests here. And let's give a shout out to Randy over here on the East Coast, over there in New Jersey. How you doing, brother?
What's going on? What's going on? Happy to be here with the Spiel once again, talking sports with my brother Sal, Quai, Guru, Steve. Your presence is missed but not forgotten.
Listen.
We'll hold down these takes until y'all hop up on another episode and catch up with us. We're excited to, it's fall season. You got football, NBA is getting ready to start, baseball wrapping up. We got a lot going on, so just happy to chop it up with the gang.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We're super excited to have you tonight. We definitely want to hear your take on that commies game this week. And over in Arizona, I have Black Belly himself, Quai, Lotus Tower. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing very well, and I gotta always say it's a pleasure, to be here with the gang, talk sports. For everyone that tunes in, whether it's now or in the future, we appreciate, the support. We, always love, doing this. This is always a great time and very, very fun. It's always a good show. It's always a great show, and tonight's no different. So cannot wait to get into it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have everyone here tonight. Let's get started. I'm thinking we just go straight into some WNBA talk. The Las Vegas Aces win their WNBA championship. A'Ja Wilson with a historic 2025 season, doing something that's unprecedented, that hasn't been done, whether it's in the W, whether it's in the NBA. And that's a player that has Finals MVP, regular season MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and the scoring title all in 1 year. And I kind of want to get everyone's thoughts on this historic run by A'Ja Wilson. Quay, you've been to a couple of those Mercury games. How is it in terms of A'Ja Wilson and her performance this season, and how it stacks up with just one of the greatest sports performances of all time?
Well, you mentioned, being at Mercury Games, first and foremost, being out here in Arizona, Phoenix, there's some sad fans. I have clients who are season ticket holders, and, they were pretty upset. But, I think at the same time, pretty optimistic and excited for the future because they did not expect, to even get to the finals. They had a crazy road to get there, and they caught a hot Aces team. So, but yeah, let's bringing up the Aces there. A'Ja Wilson, best player in the WNBA, and I don't necessarily think it's that close. There's a lot of talent, in the W that's really coming up. Nafisa Collier. I mean, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Nafisa and the Lynx versus A'Ja Wilson and the Aces, but a timely injury and maybe a not so great decision to suspend a head coach for pivotal game without their star. Maybe swung it a little bit for the Mercury to get there to go against the Aces. So again, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be the Lynx, even maybe the Liberty, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, two other key names that people know in the WNBA. But man, it's just A'ja Wilson is again just kind of in a class of her own. For those who don't know, I mean, she had like Sal had mentioned here, first player in any sport here to have MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP, scoring title, amazing first team defense. She gets all the awards. She's been MVP 4 times already: 2020, 2022, 2024, 2025. It's phenomenal. I mean, she like her averages for this season. I mean, she does it all. There's really no holes in her game. Some of the best footwork we've seen from probably a WNBA player since like the likes of like a Candace Parker or even like a Lisa Leslie, as one of the pioneers there early on to really built the road for these ladies here. And with different players coming in, as of 2 years ago now, Caitlin Clark kind of sparked a new wave of fans coming in. And even without her playing most of this year due to injury, the viewership was up. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that people are seeing more of the talent. And again, I think A'ja Wilson is like the pinnacle of what we're seeing now. Just had a dominant postseason run, 26.8 points, pretty much 27 points, 10 rebounds, three and a half, pretty much 3.5 assists, 2 steals, 2.5 blocks. She was just dominant. That is the key reason why they were able to sweep the Mercury in the finals there. And it's just she's phenomenal. And like I was saying, there's a lot of talent now coming up that I think people are recognizing. I mentioned Caitlin Clark there. I mentioned Nafisa Collier. I'm going to mention a couple names, even just on the teams here. Mercury with Satu Sabali, Alyssa Thomas, really, really good players here. And some role players like a Dewana Blair. There's a lot of talent here that people aren't seeing. And I think as the popularity increases, there's going to become more respect there. While A'ja was dominant, she also had great performances from her running mates. Looking at like a Chelsea Gray, longtime WNBA player there, just her grittiness can kind of do it all. She can score, rebound. She's more of that player, that does things that you don't always see on the stat line, even though, she may sometimes have like a decent stat line. There's other things that she does that really, really just glues the team together. Young player Jackie Young just having scoring explosions. So there's like I said, a lot of great talent here. We got a lot of future talent. I mean, some in the league right now that, after the first season, I think people, are excited about what Paige Beckers has to do, going forward in her career. And then we got the likes of like Malaysia Fulwiley. We have like a Juju Smith. We have a Juju Watkins, coming out of college too in a couple years. And so it's going to be fun. And, I'm pretty sure Randy, loves some Juju due to her connection with Jayden, hoping that,
I like what my
helps them,
quarterback likes.
Exactly. I was gonna say I'm excited for her career too. But yeah, like I said, her page, just some of the names that people are seeing that are also going to help kind of solidify this new wave in the WNBA. Now, hopefully, those ladies can start getting paid as the viewership grows and they get more sponsorships. But that's why they have things like Unrivaled, because the popularity is growing now. Second year of Unrivaled, so kind of like I said, really exciting stuff here for WNBA. But man, kudos again to A'ja Wilson. Just like I said, just being dominant. I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon. And also I'm a Heat fan for those who don't know. So shout out my boy Bam. He also has some good taste. You got the queen of the WNBA on your side. So man, kudos to her. Kudos to her.
I agree. I mean, for me, it's like one of the most beautiful things to see is the prominence of the WNBA. today, just in terms of the exposure and the depth of like different stars that we can talk about at different layers within the league. It's just a beautiful thing to see these talented women getting the spotlight that they deserve. Um, I know there's all this talk about like, oh, the WNBA isn't profitable, etc. But with a new TV deal and more star power than ever, I think they're in a position now to become cash positive more than they've ever been. And that's with adding incentives like chartered flights for all the teams, and just really giving them close to as much equity as they can, which is deserved for the talent that's on display. Some of my favorite, I really like Paige Beckers as a rookie, just like her mid-range game. She
Hmm.
reminds me so much of like what Kyrie brings to the NBA. So I look forward to seeing what she can bring to the game. You still have some amazing star players like A'Ja Wilson just dominating at the top, but I think there's just as many interesting storylines at the bottom of the league. Uh, of course, you have the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, um, put together as enemies, but I think they're both really just young superstars who are trying to get their teams to really be at the top level. Caitlin Clark had a taste of success with the in-season tournament this year, but ultimately her team fell short when it came to the playoff battle. Angel Reese had some frustrations, and shout out to her for walking the Victoria's Secret runway. Definitely another milestone in pop culture that the WNBA is breaking. Even for these women to be looked at not only for their that bodies from an athletic perspective. It's one thing for them to be in Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, but to be on the same runway as high fashion models, I think that just shows you how accepted, how mainstream some of these talents that we're seeing in the WNBA are becoming, whether you love or hate them. And for me, I love what Angel Reese brings to the game. She's not afraid to be the heel. And she embraces her flaws. Me Bounds is the most amazing thing I've ever heard, and I do want to see her game evolve over time. But to anyone who acts like she's not dominating the boards like a '90s Dennis Rodman, like you're kidding yourself. Um, and she is going to completely be able to, this is someone in their early 20s who can grow their skill set, and her ceiling is limitless. So I say all of that to say, I think there's interesting storylines, whether you're at the top of the WNBA, in the middle of the pack, if you're a rookie trying to establish themselves, or if you're a young player who had a lot of high expectations, who's trying to bounce back from injury. I think like a Candace Brinkley, I mean, not Candace, Cam Brinkley. Um, those storylines are here, and they're actually me. I would say I'm someone who is not as tapped in, but I still know all of these storylines, and so I know that the rest of the general public is not too far behind, and I love to see that for the sport. And I hope that all the young girls who pick up a basketball at their local court, in decades past, where that dream would stop at that asphalt court, because it wasn't something that they saw for themselves. I hope a lot more of them are motivated to keep going back there, hitting that hardwood, and really taking their dreams as far as it can go.
Yeah, I remember that even during the summer. I mean, it felt like the W was carrying everything. I mean, that we had baseball, but I really felt like it was a lot more relevant than it's ever been. And as a girl dad myself, I think that's a world that I think my daughters could look forward to as they embark on their athletic journeys too. So, shouts to WNBA, shouts to Asia Wilson for the historic season. Congrats to everyone part of that ACES organization. Let's pivot over to the NFL now, and talk about the probably I think the biggest story going into this week, and that is Baker Mayfield, who has now emerged as an MVP candidate. Um, and I think this narrative has kind of been in the background, and now it's kind of gone into full fruition with his win with the against the 49ers this weekend. The Buccaneers, the team that Baker's part of, is moving to 5-1 after a tough Week 6 dub. And he was efficient. He threw for 256 yards, 139 passer rating, I believe 2 touchdowns. And it was the Baker Mayfield that, when he was going as a high draft pick, you were hoping he would become. And he's grown so much. I mean, if you think about his career and how it started with the Browns, that first season, the rookie season, it was electric. They didn't get to the playoffs, but there was some promise. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs in a historic win. And then he was kind of cast aside and became almost a journeyman before he came all the way here to Tampa. But yeah, Quay, what are your thoughts here on Baker Mayfield? Do you think he is the leading MVP candidate, or do you think someone like Daniel Jones, Jones 17, I know means a lot to you, is someone like that, or Jonathan Taylor, maybe, if not Danny Dimes? Is Baker Mayfield kind of the lead right now in the MVP race?
Well, this is, it's a quarterbacks league, so I do think there would be more of a lean towards a quarterback right now. And, we just kind of look at things maybe in the first couple of games, you were going to say like Justin Herbert, maybe even Lamar Jackson, even though the record wasn't showing, maybe even Josh Allen, even though it's not necessarily the most gaudy of like passing numbers either. But you would think those guys, because oh yeah, this it's the teams that we're so familiar with. The quarterbacks we're so familiar with. But again, I think if there is a title for, the people's champ at quarterback, if that was ever such a thing, I think that has to go to Baker. I think everyone is rooting for Baker. I think everyone appreciates a story like Baker being drafted to a team like the Browns, with all the responsibility of bringing this organization, to new heights that they never experienced before, and get cast out because of certain things when it comes to, you know, a receiver and outside noise from their father, and also fans that, you know, felt as though you needed to do more and throw the ball that way to that receiver, and then that receiver's gone. You're fighting and trying to win games for this team, and you barely have an arm. Your non-throwing shoulder is barely there. Your throwing shoulder is barely there. So, and then you get cast away. You're this journeyman quarterback, and you end up finding a home because of one stint with the Rams where you weren't even meant to start or play potentially, and that changed everything. Now you found a home in Tampa Bay where everyone loves you in that city, everyone's rooting for you outside of that city. But I think this, with all that being said, just based off everything they had to go through this year so far, they're 5-1. I mean, key injuries to their top three receivers now. Ibuka was having a really good start of the year. Hamstring will probably take him out a little for some time, hopefully not too long, but he'll probably still be in the running for offensive rookie of the year. And he's been a standout with Mike Evans being hurt and Godwin also being hurt. But Mike Evans coming back, that'll help because they're down to of a veteran and Sterling Shepard, another rookie, and Taz Johnson, who has really stepped up as well these past couple of games. But man, again, I think it does have to go to Baker right now. I don't think there's another quarterback that you can definitively say outside of, honestly, maybe one that isn't getting enough credit, which maybe we'll talk about that at some other time, Drake May. But Baker, honestly, is playing amazing. I mean, fourth in the league right now, passing yards, 1,539, 66.2% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, which is third in the league, one interception with a passer rating of 108.5. I mean, he just finds ways to win, makes these clutch runs where he turns into like Superman. I was actually saying this to someone where it's almost like in Longest Yard when Paul Crew, Adam Sandler's character, the quarterback, almost threw the game, but then realized he wanted to, fight for the team and win for the team no matter what. But the team needed to really see his conviction and they weren't blocking for him. And he really wanted to show them, like, okay, let me prove it to you. And he makes this run where he breaks up all these tackles. It's like this most improbable run for a first down after like being third and 15. And Baker has done that multiple weeks to seal games or help win games. Again, dude's just a winner. I think he finally deserves all the respect of being a top 10 quarterback. If he's not talked about as a top 10 quarterback, I don't think you're seeing what's going on. You need to watch Tampa Bay games. You need to see his stats over the past few years being with Tampa. This dude has definitely a case for MVP, but I do think it's also a bit of a challenge too. Like I said, it goes to quarterbacks, but maybe this is a year we see something a little different. Bijan may have a case. He's tearing it up with all-purpose yards, whether it's rushing, receiving the football. So we don't know. Jonathan Taylor as well is another running back. While the team's not doing good, Devon Achane is also maybe up for consideration for that as well. So, but Baker definitely deserves consideration. It's still early to say if he wins it, but if you're not putting him in the MVP race, you're not watching football. You're not watching football.
Oh yeah. How about you, Sal? Any thoughts on
Yeah,
what happened this past week?
I think it all culminates in that scramble, and maybe we could put it on again. The scramble that happens at the beginning of the second half, I believe in the third. It's like a third and long, and he somehow scrambles away. Um, it's a beautiful play, and it captures, I think, everything that's exciting about Baker Mayfield. There's so much grit, and puts his body on the line. And I think there was like an interview I think he was doing with Colin Coward, and he was basically saying how, like, football is this violent sport. And I think Colin was criticizing the way that uh, he basically shows off his emotions on the field. And I think this was
Mhm.
back when he was in college. But you could tell a lot of his play is driven by his passion. And man, I was definitely impressed. I mean, that Niners defense is legit too. So it wasn't like he played the worst defense in the league and made these clutch plays. That backflip though in that game was pretty good too. Um,
God forbid a white boy have a little sauce.
yeah, I mean, he definitely
Jackson
has
Dart too.
he has that energy. Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
mean,
what we love about Baker for sure. And to your point, like glad to see a quarterback who is able to, have so much doubt due to injury bounce back onto the wagon, escape the journeyman wheel and deal. It's not easy at all to maintain and hold a starting position, and for him to get acclimated in Tampa the way he has and the way that they've started the first 6 weeks of this season, um, I mean, nothing short of incredible, and I think they're poised in a good position in that division. And I think we're seeing kind of you know, a lot of those pieces, especially in the offense, that were attracting Tom Brady to Tampa when he went on that Super Bowl run. Things have changed. There's been injuries, and for the team to be performing at the level that they are, if they can get just, one of those pieces back and functioning at a high level throughout the later half of the season, I think they're really poised to do well. So I'm happy for them, but if the commies have to run through them in the NFC playoff picture, then it is what it is. That's how I feel about
Yes,
that.
so
But
be it.
I can jump into that as well.
I need
This
Mike
past week.
Evans to come back because I need him for fantasy. You guys start
Look,
stringing some wins along.
Chris Godwin was my snipe of like a super late pick that I've just had sitting on IR in two of my
Bashing him.
leagues. And I'm hoping that at some point it'll pay off later this season that he's already listed as doubtful week to week. So I think, you know, closer to Thanksgiving we'll start to see him producing some numbers and
Yeah.
bouncing back from that ankle injury. But jumping into the NFC East as well, we had Washington taking on Chicago Bears in one of two Monday Night Thrillers, and after last season's fail Mary, leading to a victory for the Commies and Jaden Daniels, we fell short this time around, and as a fan of Washington on my side, it was really disappointing seeing us get off to another slow start, and really kind of setting ourselves up for failure with our performance in the first half, and then a couple of failures from our special teams, just looking like a young team that is making dumb mistakes and getting punished for it. But then otherwise putting on an excellent second half performance, and then ultimately falling short by 1 point on a buzzer beating field goal. Um, but we did this to ourselves with every opportunity to close out the game. Um, Even on the Swift touchdown that set up the Bears being within a field goal to win the game. That's almost 50-yard busted play, all because of a missed tackle going out of bounds. Trying to lay a big hit on a guy on the sideline when in reality you just need to corral him out of bounds at that point. And we make the mistakes of you're the last defender and you're going to try to duck your head and whiff a gigantic tackle that now leads to a touchdown. There were 7 minutes on the clock at that point in the game. If Even if they get that first down and it's a 20-30 yard completion, the amount of time that it would take them to subsequently finish that drive would have put us in such a good position to just take command of the rest of that game. And we ultimately let that slip away. And then we still had a decent offensive drive, but we don't get as far ahead as we need to. Don't punish them for going for two and failing. They come back. They milk the clock, get a field goal. And it is what it is. I can't be mad at that. I think these type of games are the ones that are really going to come back to bite us when it comes to fighting for the NFC East as a division. I still think we are in a good spot and have demonstrated a high enough level of play to be in that playoff picture. Um, but with the Giants catching heat, this game against Dallas is going to be bigger than ever for both of our seasons after these recent performances. And then having to play the Giants again after we stomped them in the beginning of the season, and they're going to have a completely new identity. Um, it's going to be interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do to bounce back from their poor performance against the Giants. Um, and getting to play them again in 2 weeks, I believe. But yeah, the Cowboys game, I hope that, we can get up for this rival game. I think um, this Washington Commanders team has a little bit of a problem in terms of bringing the same fight and intensity to every single matchup week to week. Um, but I don't worry about that in the Cowboys game. I know that that will be there. But I do worry about us letting other games like that are very, very winnable and within our grasp go like we did to the Chicago Bears. But kudos to Caleb Williams, kudos to the Bears. They are starting to look like a really good competitive team. They're in a very tough division. But if they continue to perform like they did against us, they've got a fighting shot. But I don't think that they can get away with as many mistakes against some of the better competition. And so to me, that we have to beat those type of teams to prove that we're really elite. We can't let them steal a game off of us with a field goal as the clock's expiring, especially when we had so many times to shut the door. But I'm a little disappointed in that. But I understand it's week to week, and we have an even bigger game coming up next week. And I think that, we can change our momentum and morale with a big victory against Dallas, and nothing better than a NFC East rival game. How about y'all? How y'all feeling?
I think, I mean, I just think it was more of a bad loss. I don't think this was any, I don't think it's like a bad sign for the Commanders by any means. I do think different things happen if Jayden is early and on time with early throw to Devo in the end zone. If he didn't telegraph it, that's a touchdown. Changes everything at that point. Um, if that if there's like not a botched snap at the end of the game too, where you're already up two, as you're driving down the field, I think that changes everything too. Whether that's you getting a field goal, which I think your defense would have held good for a final drive to not allow them to get into the end zone. Maybe we would have had a reverse of last year and they would have had their own little Hail Mary that actually goes their way. But realistically, I think if just those two things didn't happen in the game could have
Yeah.
played out the exact same way if those two things didn't happen. Commanders win. So I just think it was more of a bad loss. But to your point, definitely want to give some props to Caleb Williams and the Bears. Just I think Ben Johnson has definitely changed the culture. You can kind of tell the team seems very inspired to play, even when they lose their games. Outside of the Lions game where they got blown out, even when they lose a game, it doesn't really seem and it seemed like they were too worried. Like I feel like last year they lost the game. You could tell they were just deflating after every single loss. But it was like they lost two games early and they've won three in a row. And it's just like they've gotten better. It's like they've understood what it takes to win. Caleb understands and is getting better week to week of realizing like what he has to do to win, and he knows that he doesn't have to do everything. I think that was something that plagued him last year because that was kind of his job and still is his job, to bring this franchise, to where they believe they can be. But has to lean into the fact that he has good receivers, he has good running backs, he has a good play caller that is going to make sure that he's put into the best positions and that his players are put in the best positions to make plays. So definitely want to give props to them. It was an exciting, rematch. Hopefully, and more than likely, we're going to see more of these encounters with Caleb and Jayden. Again, they kind of have these paths of 1 and 2 in the draft, and where are they going to go? Who's going to have the quote unquote better career? So Again, just think that was more of a bad loss. I think the season's going to be fine. The division is getting tougher and tougher. The Bears are the only division right now with a winning record, and with every team having a winning record. Um, I think the Commanders and the Eagles and the NFC East are pretty much neck and neck, even though the Eagles are still one game up. I think they're just still pretty much neck and neck. Um, and the Giants are something you may have to worry about too if Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, get these headbutts and darts everywhere. I don't know, but I think next week against the Cowboys, it's going to be a bounce back game. Cowboys did have a bad loss, so I think they're going to probably want to try to win this game, but I I think this is going to be somewhat of another shootout type game. But I think you guys will hunker down and get the win here. I think Jayden healthier this week. I think Devo will also be healthier. He had a bit of a heel injury, so I think that kind of hampered things on offense. But I think he'll be back healthier. See if Terry maybe is back, maybe Noah Brown is back. Key injuries for you guys against the Bears, and again, like I said, two plays go your way, still win the game, and you had all these injuries. So I think the team's going to be fine. I think against the Cowboys, they'll do much better. They'll be able to run the ball more efficiently. That was another thing that didn't happen so well against the Bears. But yeah, I think they'll be able to run efficiently against the Cowboys, pass a little bit better. And yeah, I think you guys get the win. Like I said, in a shootout, it'll probably be something like a 33-27 type of game. See it like
Yeah.
that.
I think we 100% we looked like a young team, and like a team with young leadership. Even like the turnovers that we had in the backfield on a rainy game day, it was just a little bit of that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a learning experience and Jayden so far in his career has been able to dig himself out of all of those holes with Houdini moves, and he damn near did it again, but it wasn't enough. I think to your point, we didn't establish the running game like we needed to. I think we lost a little bit of faith in Bill with some of the when the turnovers started happening, and then we were chasing the game at that point. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it really changes kind of like even just your options as a play caller offensively. And then I think we become a little bit too linear and predictable when you're chasing a game like that instead of really kind of pushing things at your pace and really setting that tempo of the game. I hope we can establish good cadence against Dallas. They have a potent offense, but I think we can really just put them on the back foot by tearing up their defense. And then I think our defense can at least slow their offense down a little bit. But I foresee a shootout as well. And it's a rivalry game. So yeah, I think we're getting like a 34-28, something around there.
Yeah, and I think that the Commanders should have won the game against the Bears, but the Bears were also in the same position where they had missed on a bunch of different plays and they could make that same
True.
argument. Uh, but I mean, they I think the Commanders committed what, three turnovers, which is how many turnovers they had for the first 5 games of the season, and
Mm-hmm.
that botched handoff. I think it was the third and one, with 3 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
That really
Hmm.
hurt them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be happy about in the DMV. It looks like Jane Daniels is, even though he's coming off of injury, still looks pretty good. Every time he throws the ball, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And he was able to make some plays on the ground with his legs too. It wasn't just through his arms. So it seems like he's probably a lot healthier uh, than we would expect someone to be at this point in time, especially after a knee injury. And they ended up losing from a last second field goal, right? So it could have gone either way. This might be one of those losses that comes back to hurt. the Commanders, especially when it comes to a conference game. It might end up having some implications in terms of playoff seeding. But yeah, super excited. Caleb Williams. Glad that we're seeing some high draft picks pan out. It looks like the league is in good hands, especially with all the QBs that look promising. Um, but yeah, let's shift over to the black and gold. Let's talk a little bit about the Steelers, who asserted themselves as the clear front runner in the AFC North with a 23-9 dub over the Cleveland Browns. And this victory was actually the Steelers' 22nd consecutive win at home during the regular season against Cleveland, which is over 2 decades long. Um, and it was for Steelers fans, it was a great day. They saw their defense get all over the quarterback. Dylan Gabriel was getting smacked around all game long. He ran into names like Herbig, who actually had a tie with him because I think he had actually sacked them in Hawaii's high school playoffs once upon a time. So it was all coming for full circle, and now he's getting the sack on Dylan Gabriel on the professional level. Jalen Ramsey had 2 sacks. There's the quote in the locker room where he says something along the lines of, I'm going to tell my kids one day that I had 2 sacks in a game where I played with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. So he seems like he's really stoked to be here in Pittsburgh. Remember, he was a late trade acquisition before going into the season. And then the other uh, acquisition that they got during free agency, Aaron Rodgers, ran the offense very efficiently. He didn't get sacked all day long. And he threw some great balls. I mean, some of these balls to DK, I mean, just the timing on it. I mean, he's throwing the ball before DK is even looking up, and then by the time he looks up, the ball's in his hands. And now the Steelers are sitting comfortably here, top of the division at 4-1. This was a physical beatdown. Looks like there's some folks that are going to be injured. We're not sure if the Deshaun Elliott's of the world are going to make it over to Cincinnati tomorrow. But Quay, what do you think of your hometown Steelers and their position right now at the top of the AFC North?
Still very surprised. I mean, did not expect did not expect this at all. I mean, if we were gonna give an honest record that I thought we would have, I thought obviously we were 500 at this point, but I didn't think we would be 4-1 at the top of the division. I thought maybe 3-2 top of the division, second in division, not top of the division. Even potentially third in division because I thought Bengals would be better just because of their offense. Joe Burrow at the quarterback, they were doing it last season, throwing so many touchdowns, and they were scoring like 30 plus points, 35 plus points a game to almost get into the playoffs last year. But we know that Joe Burrow got hurt, and the Browns are the Browns. Great defense, but needs to figure things out on offense. And I think the shock has been the Ravens, obviously. But, I think this goes to show, even with certain things that you can be maybe justifiably frustrated about with Tomlin with certain things. I think the one thing you can never dispute is that no matter who lines up on that ball on offense or defense, gets the most out of the team. The team fights hard, plays hard, and it's going to be an over 500 season for that reason. Which is why I think there's been that disappointment over the past few years because we've had better teams, just missing maybe one piece, and we couldn't kind of figure that out. Shout out One Piece for those people who watch One Piece. But yes, I think this year there's so much to be excited about because you have Mike Tomlin who's here, doing the things that he does year in and year out with being the best coach, with keeping a ship steady and afloat no matter what. And then these acquisitions on offense and defense, primarily DK on offense. Kenneth Gainwell has stepped up in, his role as our spellback, when he gets on the field. Jalen Warren, keeping him around, being the best pass blocking running back, I would say. I can't, I would have to keep looking at tape to see, but I need to see what other running back is consistently winning their blocks on pass pro. It's amazing. It really helps Aaron Rodgers do what he needs to do at his age. Not quite as fast anymore, but he can still move and buy some time if needed to make that pass on the run. And it's been great. I think week in he's getting better and better. 2 touchdowns this week, another 200 plus performance. It's not always super sexy, but it is efficient and it gets done. I would like to still see more from the offense as the season evolves, which I think we're finding our stride a little bit more. Primarily in the passing game, I'm just still worried sometimes about not having a consistent wide receiver too. And, Calvin Austin is hurt right now. So that's the thing that worries me. But this defense, if it stays healthy, all year without having a significant injury, sap any potential from that defense, I think the sky is the limit at this point in terms of the division. The Ravens have to continue to win out from here on out, and the Steelers would have to have more of a cataclysmic breakdown to kind of fall to their level, which I think that would only happen if there's an Aaron Rodgers injury, if there's a DK injury, because DK is truly our best receiver and the reason why our offense can be somewhat explosive. So I don't want that to happen. I think that is the only way we kind of falter. Otherwise, with the veterans, on the defense and Jalen Ramsey I was excited. I was in ways a little sad about Minka, but at the same time, I also knew that Minka's time was probably done with us for just certain reasons. And Jalen could bring something to our defense that would solidify a lot for us and help us really, really get to the playoffs and get maybe a deeper playoff run than we've had in the past. 2 sacks. You don't usually see that from a Steelers corner. He's already had, some good plays on the ball this year, interception. TJ's being TJ, while it's not super loud all the time, TJ's TJ. Deshaun Elliott's been amazing. The secondary's been great. It's the Steelers division to lose at the end of the day. There's not much more I can say outside of that. But my only real worries, as I keep saying, is having a receiver too, and being kind of one big injury away on offense from things kind of changing. But other than that, I'm impressed by what Aaron Rodgers has done. I think going against the Bengals here tomorrow night, I think we're going to see more of, just steady Aaron Rodgers, the efficiency, and we're going to see more Darnell Washington get involved. I think he's seemingly kind of the, secret weapon too that's been unlocking our offense even more. No one can guard him when we decide to utilize him, and I think that's just going to keep unlocking our offense a little bit more. Browns are just, they're where they're at. I don't think we can say too much about the Browns. They need to figure out their QB situation, which at some point I think we're going to see Shadur. I still give Dylan Gabriel some credit just because there were certain plays that he was just a half second off. His receivers dropped the ball.
He made some
And
good
so
throws.
he made some good throws. So I do want to give him some credit there. But at some point, we're probably going to end up seeing Shador because I think this organization is trying to figure out where they go from here. I do think they're going to definitely make some in-house changes. Um, I don't know if we'll see Stefanski there anymore. Um, the Browns defense has never been the problem. It's been the offense, and Stefanski's supposed to be this offensive guy, and he hasn't been getting it done. As we talked about Baker earlier, maybe if they kept Baker around and just helped him mature in Cleveland, maybe things would have been different. But um, I think, Steelers going into the Bengals tomorrow. It's going to be a win. Joe Flacco is going to put up a nice little game. I think it's going to be closer than most people think. But I think this is going to end up being one of those games that's going to be a 27-20 type of game, just by a touchdown. Steelers are going to win here. But yeah, what do you think, Randy? How do you feel about my Steelers?
I like what the black and gold are doing. Tomlin, whatever he's smoking, keep smoking it, bro, because you finding the strategy. Uh, and he always finds a way to work with what he has, and I think in certain games, I don't know if Madden has this rating, but in a lot of the FIFA games, there's a rating called like team chemistry, and it's a separate like statistic that affects like the ceiling of all of your player statistics, and it
I
has to
like
do
that.
with like you know a way that you could increase your team chemistry in FIFA would be like if you have players of the same nationality in adjacent positions to each other, it could increase the chemistry rating. And the chemistry rating allows your players to perform at their peak, and they're more likely to perform better. I think when it comes to the NFL, that's really what the Steelers have is just such a strong team chemistry that allows them to really be the next man up in situations and for them to put out a consistently good product. And I think also the 12th man in the stadium of Steelers fans is um, and them traveling so well is what can really help with that consistency of the team, the expectation of, if you're a new player year after year and you're getting this much love, you understand the expectations that you have to uphold. And then lastly, I think Aaron Rodgers, kudos to that man and his veteran presence. I don't think he's, overdoing it or winning games single-handedly, but he is not making mistakes. He is as calculated as ever. And I'm sure for someone like DK Metcalf, it's a breath of fresh air to be able to have someone who can find him like that. They only had 4 completions out of 9 targets, but that was still nearly 100 yards and a touchdown, um, averaging like I think 24 yards a catch. So there's some explosive plays that aren't popping off now that will pop off. I'm excited. I mentioned last week that and the week prior that I'm excited to watch this offense develop throughout the season. I think we're starting to see that. I think this was probably their most polished performance. I don't think they're best offensive, but all around between the way that the defense was able to contain and how the offense was clean without making a lot of big mistakes um,
hmm
against a division rival. Never an easy game. So yeah, I like what I've seen in terms of the Browns. I think I get giving Dylan Gabriel a real good look and the reps now. But I feel like at some point at this point in the season at 1-5 should be giving both him and Shador reps and just seeing what gels better and then go forward for the second half of the season with that quarterback and allow them some time and space to develop. But also with the concept that, hey, this other guy can come back in and take your job at any point in time if we're not seeing it click. And I think for Dylan Gabriel, I didn't see it click. I know a lot of people are pushing more of the lowlights, and he really didn't have an like god awful game. or didn't look like not a professional quarterback. But he also was not a game changer. And I think in today's NFL and how we've seen rookie quarterbacks have immediate success, to really justify holding down that spot, you need to show the qualities of being a game changer. And I hope he can find that. I think Shador has that given the opportunity, and I hope that Shador does get the opportunity. And that's not to say that Dylan Gabriel can't be a starter or a pro in this league, but I don't think he's being set up for success, and I wonder if he can handle it. And a quarterback like Shador, I think, who has had a lot of the public eye from him being at an HBCU, and dominating at that level, then going over to Colorado and watching Colorado become nationally televised team, and all the people who were rooting against them when they
Hmm.
had a bad and rough season. He's been against adversity. And so I think that he will come out of it. And I think that if he starts to show good game changing like momentum and spirit, I think he can get the locker room behind him. And to me, going back to our discussion on chemistry, if the Browns were to have a team chemistry rating, it would be very low. It seems like, the guys are out, the defense is out there for themselves. Those players are just like, hey, I need to hit my incentives. I'm going to get these sacks. I'm going to get these tackles. I'm going to get my
Hmm.
contract read up. But who cares about winning? And yeah, kudos to the Steelers. I would have never thought that 6 weeks in that the AFC North would be as close to being decided as it is. But that's just the NFL for you.
Yeah, and a lot of it is the circumstances of the other teams involved. And the Bengals are trying to turn the ship around. They traded for Flacco, and Flacco didn't look too bad against the Packers last week. So
Hmm.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. I think they called it the Icy Hot Bowl. I think the Battle of the Unks was another, I think, name they were giving the matchup for tomorrow's Thursday night football game. I think the Steelers' defense has really flourished ever since Cole Holcomb has come back at middle linebacker. I really like the presence that he's had. Patrick Queen played arguably one of his best games as a Pittsburgh Steeler on Sunday. He was all over the place. He was flying. Derek Harmon, rookie out of Oregon, Dylan Gabriel's teammate, looks like a stud. I know a lot of folks were upset that the Steelers didn't pick Shador, but it really seems like this Harmon kid is going to be someone special for the next, at least the next couple of years. And then the corners. I mean, everyone from Jalen Ramsey to Darius Slay to Joey Porter Jr. Even though some of the ones in rotation that have stepped
Pierre
up,
Eccles.
yeah, Pierre and Eccles. There's just a really healthy rotation of players right now. And when you see players like Herbig come up big, when we see players like the Peyton Wilsons, saving the touchdown during the Vikings game in Ireland. That those are the plays that the Steelers are going to need in order to make a push. To be fair, though, the schedule hasn't really been that tough. They've beaten the Jets, this Browns team. The Patriots are seem like a good team. They're trending upward. But if they didn't get key takeaways, uh, the Steelers might not have won that game either. So a little bit of caution here with this team. I think that the AFC North is within reach, but don't be surprised if the Ravens fiercely come back and try to turn things around. And who knows, maybe Cincinnati have someone in Joe Flacco that can throw to those two stars on the outside, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think as long as you can give them a chance, you're going to at least have a shot in upsetting any team on any given Sunday. But we'll talk more about Steelers next week, as we always do here on the Spiel. And that's it in terms of our topics. I want to pivot over to Black Belly's waiver wonders, so that we can get all of you fantasy owners the help that you need in order to turn your season around. So, Black Belly, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, guys. No, this is Black Belly's Waiver Wonders. Back at it again, week 6 here. I hope you guys are doing well. I was 2-0 this week. I won both of my leagues, thanks to DeAndre Swift on that Monday night, Randy. But I needed DeAndre Swift to go off, and that helped me win in fantasy. So, Mike, if you watch this, I'm sorry, King Wakanda. I had to steal some vibranium. I was out there, had to get my win, but yeah. So I hope it was a good week for you guys as well. Going into this week, we don't have too many high priority waiver picks this week. But like last week, though, something that does carry over. This is the second week in a row. We have a defense here actually on the waiver wonders. So we'll get to that in a second. We're going to start off with our first waiver wonder selection here, and Tez Johnson, rookie wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's only owned on 11% of teams in Yahoo Fantasy. He's had 5 receptions with 104 yards and a touchdown over the past 2 weeks. That's over 7 targets, so not a lot of high volume, but he's made the most of his opportunities. With the fact that Ibuka is going to be out, at least for this week, maybe another week, due to his hamstring, and Godwin also being out, the receivers going to step up. Sterling Sharp is probably going to be there, or Sterling Shepard, sorry, is probably going to be there. Slot receiver, especially if Mike Evans comes back this week, which there's news of that, which is good for those who've been holding on to Mike Evans on the bench because he's been hurt. But someone's going to have to step up, and maybe they slow in Mike Evans and everything there. So Tez Johnson will definitely get some play there. So I like the matchup. It's more likely going to be a shootout there against the Detroit Lions. So Tez Johnson, if he is available, you need a receiver to start this week due to bye weeks, because week to week, bye weeks start to just ramp up. He is available more than likely. Go out and reach him. So that is the first Black Belly waiver wonder selection for the week. Number 2 here is going to be tight end Darnell Washington, aka Mount Washington for the Steelers. He is not owned in if any, fantasy teams this year. He's kind of had somewhat of a breakout game. Nothing to be super crazy and excited about in terms of the stat line. Just 3 receptions, 62 yards. However, if you are a Steeler fan, or if you watch Steeler games, you know Darnell Washington. You're just wondering when the Steelers are going to use him more. This 6'7", 6'8" behemoth of a man, listed at 265. Pat Freiermuth, one of the other tight ends on the team last year, made a joke where forget what talk show he was on, sports talk show he was on, and they were talking about Darnell. I think it was Pat McAfee actually, but they were talking about Darnell Washington, and he didn't want to disclose his true weight, because they were asking if he was truly 265, and he was like, I don't want to disclose his weight, but I'm telling you right now, it is definitely not 265. And you look at it, you're like, man, if he's not 265, and let's say he's like 290, maybe even 300 pounds somehow, and he's moving like that, he's unguardable. You need to give him the ball. And I think this is the first game, he's utilized, and even the week before, it seemed like he was on the field more than the other tight ends. Maybe it's because of his blocking ability and his size. It's helped out with Broderick Jones, which has been nice. If you're a Steeler fan, seeing him there, it's been helping him out at left tackle. So But I think this trend is only going to go upward for Darnell Washington. Again, without like a true number 2 receiver right now, with Calvin Austin being hurt, the Steelers have to lean into their tight ends and utilize their tight ends. And the one that's kind of been stepping up and standing out so far is Darnell Washington. And again, I think the Steelers are wanting to utilize that massive frame going forward, and it's definitely going to be an asset in the red zone, which, the name of the game is touchdowns. So you need a tight end to start this week. No one available for you. You want maybe a potential nice spot start because they are playing the Bengals, who have a hard time covering tight ends. Gave a touchdown to Tucker Kraft last week. So again, more so potential. I don't want you going in there thinking like, oh yeah, he's going to start just giving me 10 points. No, this will be a guy to have on your bench, just due to the potential that is there, and believably what's going to happen in terms of his playing time. So that is number 2 for Black Belly's waiver wonder selections. We're going to move on to number 3, which is kind of a jointed selection here with Tutu Atwell and Jordan Whittington, wide receivers for the Rams. Having Puka Nacua being out for this week, and maybe for another week or two, there's going to need to be a receiver to step up. In LA, they had Devontae Adams, of course, but someone else is going to have to step up. I would lean more into Tutu Atwell, especially if he's healthy. He is questionable for this week, but if he is healthy, I lean more into Tutu Atwell. Has more big play ability. It seems like he has this nice connection as well with Matthew Stafford. And when someone gets hurt, it seems like he is ready to go and step into that number 2 role. So I lean more into Tutu Atwell there versus Jordan Whittington. But again, 2 receivers to look at, especially if you need a nice flex play, need a nice wide receiver 3 type of play. Again, bye weeks are coming, and they're going to be more consistent as the year goes on. So again, jointed effort there, but I lean more into Tutu Atwell in terms of that selection over Jordan Whittington if they are available, which they are available in most leagues. Going forward here, we're going to just kind of ramp this up. We got Zay Jones with the Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver, 12.9 fantasy points last week off of 5 receptions and 5 receptions, 79 yards. He had to step in due to the concussion sustained from Marvin Harrison Jr., seeming like he's not trending to play this week. So Zay Jones will definitely be ramped up in terms of playing time, and he's going to operate more as the wide receiver 1. And if that being the case, again, very great upside. Zay Jones has had really good games when he was with the Jaguars, when he operated as their number 2, even sometimes their number 3. So surprised they doesn't get more playing time, to be honest. They don't get too much out of Wilson on the other side there. But Zay Jones stepped up with the opportunity after Marvin Harrison went down. Definitely worth the pick, especially for this week alone, if you need a receiver to step up and play for you this week. And we're going to keep it actually here in Arizona, and we're going to go with running back Bam Knight. I still like Michael Carter just due to volume and his pass catching ability. But Bam Knight, first game with the team, 13.4 fantasy points, 11 carries, 34 yards with a touchdown, 1 reception for 20 yards. He is going to be more of that early down back, that short yardage back. So he's going to get opportunities, especially in the red zone, which will kind of take away from some of Michael Carter's upside as a fantasy running back. But I like Bam Knight if he's available. And as I mentioned, Michael Carter, if he's also available, I would, reach out and, pick him up as well. I think both of these running backs are safe, but I like Bam Knight just due to, like I said, he gets more short yardage opportunities, which means he'll get more goal line opportunities because he gets more early down attempts. And last but not least, here is, like I said, we got our defense of the week here that is going to be on the Black Belly's waiver wonder list, and that is the Bears. Sorry again, Randy. I don't want to keep torturing you with like the Bears and all that, but yeah, the Bears defense is actually something that in fantasy no one is really talking about too much. Outside of 1 week, which was the week they got completely obliterated by the Lions, where they at -4 fantasy points. They have averaged 10 to 11 fantasy points every single other week. Their defense is pretty opportunistic. They get key sacks at the right time. They get interceptions. I think they're one of the leading teams this year with interceptions. So it is they. It's a defense to have, and I know it doesn't always seem like, especially you look at their scores, the games always seem close. But again, in fantasy, it's not necessarily about the score that your defense gives up. It's about the plays they're able to make. So if they're getting sacks, if they're getting interceptions, it's going to help. It's going to help them generate and sustain points, no matter if they're giving up 20 points a game. And yeah, in the last 3 games, they've averaged exactly 10 fantasy points. And with bye weeks here this week, if you need a defense, again, I think the Bears are a safe one. I like their secondary. They have some really good names. Kevin Byard is back there, really good safety back in his day with the Titans. And they have some really good studs at linebacker and TJ Edwards and Terrell Edmonds, which they have some thumpers there. So yeah, again, you need a defense this week. And honestly, if you need a defense for you for the rest of the year, I think the Bears defense is a very, very safe defense to have. They just proven they have a nice floor right now. They haven't even proven what their real ceiling is. I think that it was an anomaly to have -4 against the Lions. But so far, they haven't given you a real floor. They've scored double-digit fantasy points outside of that game against the Lions. So if there was a priority waiver wonder this week, that would be the priority waiver wonder for Black Belly this week. That would be the Bears defense. But again, I hope the Bears. But again, I hope everyone takes my advice with a grain of salt. As much as I love to do this, I do not want to be blamed. As I constantly say, for you, if you lose your fantasy that week. But I'm going to throw out some kind of honorable mentions that I've mentioned before that might still be out there. Jackson Dart, I know he's still available in some leagues. So if you need a quarterback just to spot start, or you just even want a quarterback to have on your team, he has been producing a great floor at around 17 points. So really good pickup to have there as well. Another one would be Trey Tucker. He's starting to kind of ramp back up with the Raiders. So if you need a receiver play this week, that would also be a great one. And then I would still say a Malik Washington would be great as well. Just again, Tua's not throwing the ball deep. He gets the looks. He's also being utilized in the running game as well. So Malik Washington gets the attempts. He's also doing their special teams, so he gets punt return, so he's going to get those yards as well too. So yeah, again, I hope everyone enjoyed the picks this week. Black Belly loves again to give you guys, some good news, some good potential picks that help your fantasy football teams. I hope you guys have a great week. If you're in multiple leagues, I hope you win every single game this week. I'm trying to go 2-0. I got a big matchup against one of our tougher opponents. He has been a multiple champion in our league, so I got to make sure I bring my A game. So make sure you guys bring your A game this week and get that dub for Black Belly.
Black Belly, y'all. Black Belly.
Yeah, thanks again, Black Belichick, for the Black Belly's waiver wonders. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching. That is it for our show. Um, so we talked about the MVP with Baker Mayfield tonight, talked about the Vegas Aces and their WNBA championship, A'Ja Wilson on her historic performance there in the postseason and in the regular season. Talked a little bit about our local teams, our commies, our Steelers, little Thursday night football preview. And hopefully next week we could talk some MLB playoffs. Blue Jays came back in the series, or at least finally got a dub and beat the Mariners at home. Dodgers have a 2-0 lead on the Brewers. Game three set for tomorrow in Los Angeles. So lots of sports tomorrow. But before we head out, does anyone have a spiel?
I got a real quick spiel. Just spoke about some of the World Cup qualifiers taking place over the international break. A lot of nations were able to solidify their spot. Some are still in contention with some playoffs that'll be coming up in November, December, and January, early of this year. Congratulations to all the nations that made it. My family is from Portuguese and Cape Verdean descent, as you can see from my Portuguese soccer flag over here. The island nation of Cape Verde qualified for its first World Cup out of the African group qualifiers. This is their first time making the World Cup, and Cape Verde is a nation of around 500,000 population. Um, but if you know anything about Lusophone nations, that is those that speak Portuguese or former colonies of Portugal. Case in point, Brazil. Soccer runs strong in our bloods, and it's great to see Cape Verde really just take control of their group and qualifying on top. Such a small nation, but so much talent, such beautiful people. The first country that I ever got to visit in West Africa, and memories that I'll never forget. And I've got some family over there who I know are proud of their country today, and seeing them qualify for the World Cup. So love to hear that. And one other quick shout out when it comes to the esports world. Um, Evo France actually took place over this past weekend, and Arslan Ash of Pakistan took home the victory for Tekken 8. He is the winningest player in that game, so amazing to see him win on the Evo Grand Stage in Europe. And then for Street Fighter 6, we actually had Lashar taking it home in one of the most amazing sets against a 15-year-old Blas from Chile. Mr. Crimson, also a special shout out, a French player who made it to the top four of EVO. If you get a chance, watch any Mr. Crimson matches from the weekend. The entire crowd was cheering every time. And he was playing Dawson. Anytime he got a throw or an awesome play, the entire room was erupting. And it was just great to see people cheering on esports. And I love the direction where, these folks are competing on the highest level with fast twitch reactions. And I love to see the competitive nature take place there just as much as I do live sports. But that's my spiel.
Thanks, Randy, for the international soccer update. Congratulations uh, to all the nations that are qualifying. Shouts to Malaysia scoring 5 goals against Laos in the Asian Cup too. So yeah, a little plug there. Um, oh, you quite? Do you have a spiel for tonight?
I didn't really have a spiel, but I'm gonna kind of continue on for what I talked about earlier to start off the show, to talk about the WNBA. I wanna put this out there for for people that may have certain feelings about the WNBA. I think some of those feelings come from comparing it to the NBA, and I think it's unfair. I think, and the whole point of like women's sports is for them to have their space to be able to do what they do, and whether it's because you want more dunking or whatever it is, I think you have to put that aside and look at what these girls do offer. We mentioned earlier about like a Paige Beckers, where if you watch her, she has a really good handle, really good just feel for the game, mid range is unstoppable. And then she can drive to the paint. As we mentioned, A'Ja Wilson being just the best. Like I said, I believe she's the best player in the league. And you see like the likes of like a Caitlin Clark, what she's able to do when she's healthy. When you see Angel Reese, what she's able to do when she's healthy. When you see what some of these established names in the league do when they're healthy, like I mentioned earlier, like a Breanna Stewart, a Sabrina Ionescu. Then you have like Alyssa Thomas and Alicia Gray, familiar names that people would know, like a Brittany Griner, a Kelsey Plum, which shout out Darren Waller, for his comeback. Sadly, for the relationship, they didn't work out. But again, that you have all these like big names, and the scoring output's getting higher and higher. You hear some NBA fans who don't like watching NBA now because they feel like it's only threes and there's not really a defense being played and all this stuff. But then they'll complain about the WNBA being lower scoring and how they wish, the 90s basketball was the best basketball, when Michael Jordan was around and those players were around. But in that era, there wasn't really a lot of high scoring games. So, for the ladies, when they don't have necessarily the highest scoring games, which if anyone watches, part of the reason why they don't have high scoring games is because they're not shooting threes at the same clip that they are in the NBA. Like these women can shoot threes, and there's really, really good players who can shoot threes. But as a whole, in a team, it's not like the Boston Celtics, how they're shooting like 63s a game. You're not going to see that with a lot of WNBA teams, if at all. You're going to see a lot of the fundamentals happening, and you're going to see, like I said, a lot of inside out or maybe outside in type of play, depending on what the team has and who they are. Where the biggest problem I think you'll hear people complain about the NBA is the fact that it seems like every single team is the same. So like it's just threes, and I've had this conversation with people where 10 years ago, it felt like, okay, you went against Golden State, you knew what you were going to go up against. You went against the Spurs, you knew like, okay, we're going to have to deal with like a lot of movement, a lot of pick and roll play with mid range, like players who can mid range, great ball movement. Everyone played very differently. Now there's like this similar style of play throughout the NBA that people complain about. But in the WNBA, teams play very much to whatever their strengths are. Everything that the people complaining about that complain, that goes on in the NBA doesn't really exist in the WNBA, but they won't want to watch it because they feel like it's boring. So, I feel like if you have that stance, I would say make sure that stance isn't coming from a place of an echo chamber. Watch a few games, and I don't mean, highlights. I mean, like, watch a few actual games and just watch the game for what it is and not what you want to see and what you expect to see. And I think, again, it's starting to shift. We see, with Caitlin Clark, as everyone said, oh, that's the only reason why people are watching the WNBA. She didn't really play that much this year, and their sales and viewership were up still. So I think we are seeing that shift, which is really, really good. I think, and it's kind of starting with seeing more exposure in the college realm, which is leading more people to now watch the WNBA because a lot of their favorite players that they've seen in college are now becoming pro. And then now they're seeing the players that have been there and they're like, oh, okay, these people they can play. They are really good. And this is a fun product. So, I'm just excited for the future of the WNBA. And for those who are wanting the explosion, seeing more dunking, I promise you in the 2030s, you're going to start seeing more girls dunk. They're already like doing the training and the work now at younger ages to try and dunk So we're going to see more of that going in the future. Just I say this, just respectfully, take time and actually expose yourself more to it and not through the echo chamber that you may hear, trolls on the internet talk about.
Yeah, a lot of nasty trolls out there just sharing videos of WNBA players missing layups or bad quality product. And, if you cherry pick those same type of plays in the NBA, you would see a lot of things like that too. Your double dribbles and just bad offense and bad
Hmm.
defense on any given night. And it's not just subject to the WNBA, as we saw during our WNBA highlights when we talked about A'Ja Wilson. I mean, some of those plays are spectacular. Those are plays that if anyone made them on the basketball court, we would be impressed with. So yeah, thanks a lot, Quay, for your spiel. Go
Yeah.
watch the W,
And
everyone.
yep, and shout out Unrivaled. For those, Unrivaled is a 3v3 WNBA kind of league that they do. Because these ladies don't get paid too much. It's sponsored by a lot of old vets from the league, and it's kind of a fun little. If you still want to watch some basketball outside of the NBA, you got that, and it's pretty exciting. It's its second year, so there was definitely popularity for it to come back for a year too. So, is that something you guys are interested in? Like I said, Unrivaled should be starting in about a month or so.
Yeah, well, thanks for the W plug. We appreciate it. And then I guess last but not least, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the pro football focus grades and why those grades are just made up numbers. You see them all the time. Sunday Night Football, Chris Collinsworth is announcing all the players, and there's a little grade below it. And you look at Patrick Mahomes, and he's, I think, like 16 out of 34 players that qualify. And maybe for some of us, we have enough insight and we watched the game enough to understand that Patrick is not middle of the pack when it comes to QB. He's actually one of the best, and as he showed, he and the Chiefs end up beating the Detroit Lions, who were favored in that matchup. So another example, the Steelers Browns game, Myles Garrett gets a elite PFF grade, and the justification that was used in the clip, I believe it was one of the PFF reps talking about it, about how players like Garrett get an elite grade for winning his blocks. So even though the final result is 0 sacks and a loss for the Cleveland Browns, the stat is not showing up in the stat line, but because of those matchups, he's winning the matchups, but teams like the Steelers are putting 3 people on him, 4 people on him, chipping him before they go out for their route. They're doing their best to stop him. And we see reporters, Pittsburgh reporters, and other influencers in the area retweet that particular PFF video clip. So I know here in the Steel City, it's in the front of everyone's mind that his rating was higher than TJ Watt's in week 6. So maybe we need to take those player grades with a grain of salt. As TJ's older brother, JJ Watt,
100%.
said, he said that he was PFF's top ranked player and he saw their system change because of him. And those grades are quote unquote completely made up. That's just from a Hall of Fame player. You can take his word for it. Uh, Stats are important, and I think that PFF does have interesting stats that we can ponder upon. But just remember that those stats do not define the players that play the game. At the end of the day, winning defines that. What the players, what the coaches think of these individuals on the football field, that's what defines a player. That's what gets those players in the Hall of Fame. They're not going to enshrine your PFF grades in Canton. So that's it for our show. I appreciate everyone of my guests, Randy, Quay. Thanks for joining me as always. Hopefully we can get Scuba Steve, maybe we can get Guru and Shaq on here and talk about some of those other teams like the Baltimore Ravens that we want to get some hometown insight on how they're feeling about their Ravens. So until next time, I appreciate all the viewers. Remember, you can watch these VODs over on YouTube or listen to the podcast on Spotify. It is the Spiel
Like,
Sports Talk
comment,
Show.
subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe, like,
Like and
comment.
subscribe,
Yeah,
comment,
tell your friends about us.
share, all of it.
Argue with us in the comments. Whatever you got, we're here for it.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Deuces.
It's a good show.